Hello and welcome. Alan Plum here again with a little more from Shed Engineering. And first, a big thank you to everyone's advice on gaining some space on my hard drive. I've managed to gain a bit, although with the amount of stuff I've put on a portable hard drive, I was expecting far more. But anyway, I'm operational for the time being. Right then, what can I come up with today that's a bit unusual? Well, it's on the same theme as the waterfall, I'm afraid. When is a waterfall not a waterfall? When it's a weir, of course. Weirs were first used to raise river levels so that watermills had a controlled supply of water. And then in the Industrial Revolution, of course, weirs were then used to raise river levels to make them navigable for narrowboats and barges. And building one weir could save digging several miles of canal. And obviously canals are closely associated with the railways as well. Very often the railway would take the same route as a canal, trying to keep to level ground and avoiding too many inclines. So a canal actually goes hand in hand with a railway and makes a very interesting feature. But can we make it a little bit more interesting by adding a working weir? Obviously not working with water, but just to create that bit extra visual interest. Okay, I realise it's not everybody's cup of tea because it would be difficult to retrofit something like this. It's something that needs to be considered at the planning stage, I suppose. But I'm trying to take a different approach. This is my first attempt at modelling any kind of water. It's also just a mock-up, remember. This is just a demonstration. As most of you know, I'm modelling a real location and there were no rivers or canals near the railway line. Well, there was the River Wye down in the valley, but I would have to add an extra foot to the front of the layout to be able to model that. So modelling a real location can be a bit limiting at times, and this is just my way of floating some ideas and seeing if they have any potential for others out there. As you can see, I'm building a cardboard armature or landscape. I suppose this also demonstrates that you don't have to use plaster cloth. For the actual weir, I'm using that Perspex tube with chrome ends. I don't know where it come from, to be honest. I think it was a fancy pull cord knob that I was supposed to fit to the bathroom pull switch. But as I showed, you can use just about anything. A piece of wooden dowel, overflow pipe, or even a felt tip pen, although that might be a bit messy. Any kind of small cylinder that you can glue an axle into will do fine. So as you can see, I'm building the landscape and representation of the canal from cardboard. I've used expanding foam, fiberglass, cardboard. The only one I haven't used is plaster cloth, which everyone else seems to use. If this was a real canal, there would actually be a turning circle or canal basin at this point, so that boats could turn around. But this could be a short spur taking the water back into the river. I had a bit of a miscalculation on the height of the canal walls, so I've used some of that white plastic corrugated cardboard to raise the level up, and then use stone paper along the edge of the canal and to make a retaining wall at the end there. These are just some strips of card to represent flagstones running along the edge. Those are just glued in place and then given a coat of paint, and then what is the riverbed gets a coat of paint, and the bottom of the canal, although it wasn't necessary, as you will see later, for me to paint that. I came out with a different option. Here I'm mixing some foam filler. It is shredded building foam, and then 50-50 PVA and water, but as normal I put some paint in with it so that it's already self-coloured. That's the shredded building foam going in, and then that is mixed up to a paste, and as you can see that's virtually the only thickness of a cardboard. I have given the card a coat of PVA first, just to be on the safe side. The coarse foam filler seems to work very well. In a previous video I show using it to make a hedgerow at the same time, all in one simple application. Plaster cloth, you nearly always need to apply more plaster to hide the cloth overlaps and angular contours, then obviously rub it down as well. Then purchase and apply several expensive scatters or flocks to try and create the colour and texture. I'm getting to this point with one simple application and no rubbing down. But obviously if this was a real layout, then you would continue to add to this basic ground cover. There you saw that I was painting the weir itself, very roughly I must admit, but that'll do for this demonstration. And here I've got some acetate sheet on the cutting board. You'll only be able to see the reflection, which I'm just scoring to fold over and make, how can I describe it, basically a U section, because nearly everybody uses a product called realistic water, which is not cheap by any means, although I have seen PVA glue and clear varnish used to make a water effect, and I used hot glue quite successfully, although that goes a little bit opaque. The realistic water needs many applications. You have to make absolutely sure you've got no leaks, or otherwise your realistic water just ends up running out, and obviously it needs colouring as well. Hence why I'm using this acetate sheet to see what can be achieved with just a few folds and a coat of paint, and this took 5 minutes if that. So hopefully you can see that I'm basically making a U section from the acetate sheet. The width of the canal itself, I would have been a lot better making a template to get a nice snug fit, but for this demonstration that's quite alright. And there you can see the depth of it, probably 3/4 of an inch or something like that. So then I'm just giving it a rough. It's very difficult to know what colour water is. It depends on what's in the bottom, or whether it's murky or muddy, but I'm just, as you can see, giving it a quick coat of paint to represent the colour of the water, and that's why I didn't need to paint the bottom of the canal. Now I'm doing exactly the same again with another sheet. I've cut a little bit out at the end so that the shiny surface comes over the weir towards the roller that I've got there. It is quite a snug fit. It took a while just to get in. I suppose I could have painted the underside and then still had the shiny surface, and that would have saved doing it twice. I've taken that out for a moment, and that piece of cardboard there is just a little bit too high. Now in real life that would be sort of a stone wall, but I've just lowered the height of it because it was just a couple of millimeters too high. The coloured acetate sheet is already in, and then I'm putting the shiny one over the top, which extends forward over the wall of the weir and up to the roller. Unfortunately, I've got quite a nasty crease in there. I should have taken more time to just bend that over. So now we're going to try creating a water effect for the river after the weir, and I'm just using a freezer bag. With realistic water, even though I've never used it, it appears almost impossible to actually create waves or ripples as if there was water piling up against a rock. And so that's my main reason for trying this method, to see whether we can get ripples or waves. There you can see the edge of the freezer bag, and I want to try and glue it in that position so that it's standing up against the revolving weir. That was then glued in position. Cutting a hole out for the rock and purposefully putting crinkles and ripples in the polythene to try and get a three-dimensional effect rather than the flat mirror finish. And as you can see there, I've created some quite choppy water. So much so I tried flattening it down a little bit without a lot of success. So I just dropped a rock in there so that the crinkles were running up against the rock, and that might be a better approach than trying to cut around the rock. This is making a little swan, and after approximately 3.5 hours this is what we ended up with. It's plainly obvious now that I should have stuck the polythene down first before applying the grass, and then that would have obviously nicely concealed all the edges rather than trying to cut it to the actual shape of the river. There you can see the three-dimensional effect of the polythene rather than the mirror finish. The chrome ends of the weir itself are showing up quite badly there. I think with handling it I've rubbed some of the paint off. And also in situations like this, when this is in full screen and enlarged several times, you're seeing it in far more detail than you ever would in real life. A truer perspective would be to watch it in small screen from the opposite side of the room, and the same with the waterfall in the last video. So there we go, my attempt at creating a small weir and three-dimensional or choppy water. You may want to think about how it's been driven. Yes, with my drill and from this side, but with the wall angled back like it is, the drive shaft should be coming straight out through that wall. Many thanks to all my new subscribers. I'm amazed where they all keep coming from. And remember, if you want notifications and updates, click the little cogwheel at the side of the subscribe banner. I hope you found something of interest, and as always, many thanks for watching.